Hello everyone! Hello! Welcome! Happy Friday! Hope you all are doing well. Oh, let me get the stream chat synced up here. Also, if you can hear that really loud thing in the background, that is my kettle heating up. And hopefully it'll be done in the next 60 seconds or so. And then that loud noise will go away, but that seems like a good time to just get us started off with the stream. Hope you all had a good Christmas, a happy Christmas, a Merry Christmas if you were celebrating, or if you just had a regular day, I hope it was a good regular day. Or if you maybe didn't have a great day, I hope that things are doing better. I know that the holidays can be a rough time for a lot of folks, and especially, you know, in a community that has people from a very diverse background, but also with being kinky and therefore being more likely to be queer and such, you just make it a lot harder to have a normal, happy holiday situation with the family. But I hope you are doing well. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't think I've ever ran my kettle while I've been streaming before, and it's like distracting me. It's so loud. But we have the Bandita camera. We have Sean. Thank you so much, Sean. Away from home for the holidays, so no computer to give with. No worries, Sean. Totally, like, obviously always optional. Like, you're great, but definitely don't feel pressure to. Hopefully you are enjoying your time home for the holidays. We have our little Christmas set up here, and we usually have some suggestions for what to talk about during the live stream in the title, but really this is more of an interactive Q&A in general. So we share stories, we ask questions. They can be related to basically anything you want, but generally speaking on this channel, we talk about pop culture stuff, kink, BDSM, polyamory, dating, relationships, dating apps, and various problems and queries therein, and also definitely queer culture and asexuality, and again, all the intersections thereof, and also just random stuff like what my favorite color is. We have a newish feature here on the channel that is from YouTube. It is up in the upper left-hand corner, or if you're on the stream, if you're in the chat, it is the white box at the top of the screen. I guess unless you're on some certain devices, in which case you don't see anything, but the general rule of thumb is there's a little white box at the top of the stream chat, and if you put a question in there, I will get to it right away. Otherwise, I try my best to get to chats as they like come into the stream, like in order. So if you ask early, that's the best option. I usually try to start these streams early, so if you have to jump in and out really quick, you have an opportunity to ask a question before we even start, and then you can come back and watch the replay later and get your answer if I got to it. But one of the advantages with the Q&A feature is it preserves your question for the whole stream. If you just put it in the chat, YouTube doesn't let me like infinitely scroll backwards in time. Like I can't figure out what it is, but there's some cutoff that happens with the stream chat where I have a limit on how far I can scroll back before it just like won't let me. So I definitely recommend using that Q&A feature, or you can use a super chat. You can go through Streamlabs, or you can go directly through YouTube, and that will make it so you will get your screen, you'll get your question highlighted on the screen, and then I will answer right away. And the kettle has just gone off, so I'm going to go pour myself some tea, and then we will get into some questions. You might want to decock your kettle. My coffee pot where I boil water also makes noise until I clean it out. Is that what it is? It's always, as far as I can remember, it's always made that noise. So I just assumed it was normal. I've owned, generally there's like a noise of it starting to boil whenever I've owned kettles, but maybe there's some part of kettle ownership that I'm missing out on, but that's a fair point. All right, now I will retrieve the tea. Tea has been retrieved. Okay. Descale? Oh, I'm assuming, yeah, not decock, but descale. Yeah, that would make more sense. Happy holidays from Wisconsin. Ooh, Wisconsin. Merry Christmas, everyone from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Yep. Oh, Pennsylvania has a lot of like very interesting town names, doesn't it? We are here in beautiful Portland, Oregon, where we are somehow once again caught between a bunch of other extreme weather systems and then them not happening to us. So, like in California, like Northern California right now, I don't know what like LA is up to, but Northern California, there was a tornado watch yesterday. There has been massive flooding. There's massive flooding all around Seattle. The road to Leavenworth has been closed. Like there's road closures and floods. And then Portland's just like, I don't know. It's just normal here. It's 50 degrees. And like we had one day of high-ish winds until like the middle of the afternoon. And we had some heavier rain like before Christmas. And then that's all we get. Nothing extreme as far as I know in my neck of the woods. Obviously, Portland, it's a pretty big area. It's a pretty big city. So I don't know what they're going through out in Hillsborough. I don't know what's going on in Eugene. I don't know what's going on down there. So maybe other people are experiencing more weather, but for right now, it seems like we are in the slightly warmer than average, slightly wetter than average camp for this year of weather, which makes me slightly sad because it means that there's not as much going on for snow, and I really wanted to go and enjoy some snow for Christmas, but that does not seem to be happening. So we are just dealing with it. The minerals in the water stick to the surface. My coffee pot was jumping on the stove and falling over till I descaled it. Oh my god, okay. Well, it's definitely not that bad. It's not like leaping around or jumping or doing anything. I will definitely check to see if there's any mineral buildup on it because I have like, I don't really have like soft or hard water, but it does lean more towards hard water. I do get like some mineral buildup from like my shower and things. So there being mineral buildup just from my tap water in my kettle would not be surprising to me. Is that they here in Eugene too? Thank you for the update, Ape with Pants. I didn't know they let apes be citizens in Eugene. That's interesting. On my iPad, it tries to open the app a few times, but I can switch back to the browser and force it. Oh, weird. Okay. Oh no! I hope your well, I guess if your tooth is out, it's probably not your tooth, but hopefully your mouth is doing better. Ugh, yeah, having a bad tooth it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. We just got us some huge snowstorms here, and now it's just wet. Yeah, I mean, if it's cold and rainy, I'd rather it just be snowing. I would much rather it just be snowing, which I know is okay. If I came from an area where like it snowed all winter long between like October and March, maybe I would feel differently. But like I've always lived in places that are like at most snow once, maybe twice a year. So when it does happen, it's a fun time. I've been trying to fix my sleep, which means bed at 1 to 2 a.m. instead of 4 to 6, so I decay how long I can hang out, but I'm really glad to catch at least a bit of the stream. Yeah, glad you could hang out. Thanks for stopping by. Definitely on board with the fixing a sleep schedule thing, that I know what an uphill battle that can be. And good luck, because yeah, it is a project to change your sleep schedule, that's for sure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get into some questions. I thought maybe we could talk about holiday stuff. I thought we could talk about like kinky New Year's resolutions, because I have done videos about that for like not every year, but I've done it for a couple years in the past. I don't think I'm going to do one this year, but I am curious if anyone in the chat has any kinky New Year's resolutions or what you might be planning on getting up to that's like new or exciting or different in 2026. Honestly, I can't believe it's going to be, before we know it, and I'm sorry to do this to people, it's going to be 2030. And I'm not mentally prepared for that. I am not mentally prepared for it to be 2030. But 2026 is happening. Things are going to be different no matter what. In good ways, in bad ways, we do have control over some stuff. And I am curious if anyone has anything that they're going to be doing differently in the coming year, or new things that they're going to be getting up to, or just plans in general that might be exciting for folks. I came from Tennessee and moved more north, where we got lucky, where we were lucky to get an inch We got a foot here. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm sure they were not equipped to deal with that much snow at all. We just got a good amount of snow this afternoon, and right now temperatures are sitting around the high teens to low 20s. That I feel like is more or less ideal, like Christmas weather, I feel like. Kinky resolution is we are restarting 24/7 with a new outlook on January 1st. Only 1 week left. I'm excited. Oh yeah, that is the perfect attitude to go into things with. I am glad that you are excited about that. And good luck. Oh, no worries. You, Twixie, do not worry about missing streams. Everyone, I'm for sure, is busy with holiday stuff. It is no worries. I'm busy with holiday stuff. Luckily this year, the timing of like Christmas Day did not interfere with like my stream schedule, especially because things that were normally on Thursdays got moved to Tuesdays, and we got to have a nice little like movie night stream over last weekend. If you guys didn't see that for YouTube or for Patreon, which is really fun. But yeah, hopefully things are going well. On that note, actually, this coming week, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I'm going to be doing stuff. So I don't 100% know if I'm going to be streaming on Monday and Tuesday. But I will most likely not be streaming on the 2nd. But there will be some combinations of stream happening and stream not happening. But the 2nd is definitely not going to happen because I'm going to be like probably driving back home on that day. And Monday, Tuesday is like a maybe. Haven't figured out plans yet. Maybe doing something for stream those days. Maybe not. But we'll just have to keep an eye out for that stuff. Yeah, I miss turning my brain off, and I'm glad Aaron is ready to step up to the plate and lead me again. Heck yeah. I mean, it's good to take a break, and like I'm a big believer in not forcing yourself to do power exchange because it's an ideal that you have or something you just feel like you have to keep doing or that you can't change, because once you start building negative associations with power exchange, whether it's like with a partner or a style of power exchange or what specific activities you're doing, it is so hard to untangle those negative associations with feeling like you're being forced to do something from the fun activity itself. And then once those, like, it's fun, but then I also kind of feel like I'm forcing myself to do it, and that makes it not fun. Like, it just makes the feelings way too complicated, and like taking a step back, I think, is the smart decision. If you ever feel like you need to take a step back, like it's the right time to do that, like absolutely go and do it. That's my opinion. And I'm not one of those people, and maybe that's a style difference. I'm sure there's people that are more hardcore about power exchange than I am. Certainly back in the day, there were a lot of people who had beliefs that were like, no, becoming a slave means like forever, and you can never ever say no after that point, and I own your body and your soul, and if you ever leave me, I have the privilege and the right to run down and kidnap you and force you to be my slave again. And I'm not sure how much of that was just like fantasy insertion, but like these are things that people said in like at least semi-serious conversations about like, what does it truly mean to be a submissive? And it's like, I don't think that's how consent works on either side. Because what if the master wants to stop being a master? You know, what are you gonna do then? Just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I think people can go astray. They can definitely lead themselves astray when they're forcing themselves to do something that doesn't quite feel right anymore. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely felt like a personal failure to not be able to keep it up. Yeah, I definitely get you on that, because you have this idea that you want to live up to, and then you're not doing it anymore, and it's like, what's wrong with me? Why am I lazy? Why isn't this working anymore? And like, some things are really just better done as like an occasional treat, right? Like, it's, we understand we might have a favorite food, even if it's like a healthy food. Like maybe our favorite food in the world is like a big homemade salad or whatever, or like a quinoa bowl or something. Okay, well that doesn't have all the nutrients in it that you need to live. So you can't literally only ever have quinoa for every single meal. You gotta have something different. And sometimes the things that we really enjoy, they're even better when we do them sparingly, and it doesn't mean that we should be doing them every day, 24/7, even every week. Being able to calibrate what actually works for you versus what your tastes are, because in an ideal world, we'd probably want to have our favorite thing all of the time. But by having it all the time, it can actually make it not be our favorite thing anymore. And learning that, especially after not being able to have the type of relationship that we want to have for a long time, is like very difficult, because fantasy and reality definitely do not always match up. Also, my tea is definitely like way too hot for sure, so I'm gonna set that down because it's actually so hot that it's you can't really probably see my fingers from the camera, but like all my fingies are all like warm. I remember that video describing hunting down an ex-submissive. Old internet BDSM was wild. Yeah, I wish I remember what video that was in. I think, was that like, it was either about like the old guard, or like there was some, or like total power exchange. I think it was a total power exchange video, actually, now that I say that out loud, that I did that research, because I was trying to figure out like, where did the term come from, why did we start using it, and lo and behold, it was because a bunch of people on an old internet forum that's now archived for some reason totally unknown to me, is now part of an archived set of conversations on Google groups, which who even uses those anymore anyways? So it's like an archive within an archive of old like IRC chats and people being like, actually I wrote, like literally like somebody who was arguing that I think wrote like different loving, or like so one of those type of books where it's from a dominant perspective, it's about BDSM, pharma power exchange lens, and yeah, but then it's funny how you like how times have changed. Like the main posters on internet forums about BDSM become authors that write BDSM books, because you know, who else has the time to argue about the exact definition of what it means to be a slave or to do power exchange than the kind of person who also has the free time to write a whole ass entire book on the subject. So I don't know. Hunting down an ex-submissive, what the fuck? Oh yeah, if you haven't watched the video on Total Power Exchange, it's in that. It's the full, I have like screenshots and everything that I share of that conversation. It's pretty nutty, and that was not the first and only place I saw that kind of logic being applied, because there are definitely people, you know, if you go to like, what is it, like the Iron Gate or the Iron Garden, there's like another older, like, if you go to a website where they still have like a different cursor that you use, that's not the default browser cursor, or it starts automatically playing music, or it just looks like it hasn't been updated in 20 years. If you find a website that looks like that, first of all, it probably has some of the best BDSM information you've ever read in your entire life on there. But then the other flip side of that coin is it has a lot of antiquated stuff about like, this is what it means to do BDSM. You know, before we discovered that like consent might also be something that should be like revocable and like should be a continuous process. And we just didn't necessarily know what we were doing with consent in 1999. And there were a lot of people that wrote very passionately about kink, but either hadn't ever done it in real life, or were maybe people that had really big fantasies online, and those weren't translating to their real life relationships, but they were acting like it was, and then maybe misleading people. Same wheelhouse of the kind of people who used to say that like pet play is always an extreme form of degradation, and only the most, you know, lowly submissives want to be reduced to merely being treated like an animal, and when you do pet play it's always humiliating, and you know, to be a real pet you have to no longer ever speak, and you have to you know, give up the right to be on furniture, and you know, you do like water sports and bathroom training and like all these things, and that's what it means to be a pet. And that's obviously very, very different than how a lot of people think and feel about it now. So yeah, very, very strong opinions on the old BDSM internet. I would love to do like a highlight reel of like, here are some of the weirdest old BDSM takes that I've heard from like the 90s and before, because I have some books that were published that are about BDSM that came around either around that time or a little bit before or after, and a lot of the information is still solid, which is why I own those books. And sometimes you read a sentence and you're like, well, we've updated our thoughts and feelings about that. Okay. And then it's quite the ride. Yeah, there's definitely some cool stuff on that. Different cursor than usual plus autoplaying music equals best internet. I don't love it when, you know, somebody's random favorite song starts blasting from my headphones at maximum volume and like damaging my hearing permanently, but I like the concept in general. Yeah. Oh, nice t-shirt. Thanks. It's very Christmassy, as you can tell. I've been having to like normie mode it for like a couple of days because I've been around like my family and I tone it down. So I took out my earrings and I've got a sweater on, and I just needed to return to some baseline sense of normalcy for myself. So much of that stuff is hot and stuff we've tried, but it's so weird to expect anyone to keep up with the intense stuff like that. I know, but that's not what the internet says. Internet says in order to be good at kink, you gotta do all that forever and ever and ever and ever, every single day for all of life. Can my desk not go? Okay, there we go. It's like, my desk is too high. There we go. Nothing but God honoring BDSM here. Bible discussion study meeting. Exactly, right. We're all just, we love Jesus. That is why I do kink, is to further my connection to God and understand my rightful place as a homemaker and a wife. And what do you mean I'm not married? What do you mean? What? No. You know, have you ever seen like YouTubers that make like Danny Gonzalez, or like, I don't know if Drew Gooden's in this, but kind of that like type of YouTuber, like commentary / like funny guy that makes interesting videos about random subjects kind of YouTubers. You know, they make videos where they're like, I, you know, pretended to join some random app and I wanted to try and become famous on it from scratch, right? Like they like try to take over like the least popular social media app on the Google like app store or something. Like then generally trying to infiltrate different things like becoming a famous TikToker or like getting a viral music hit on TikTok, something like that. I want to do something like that, but I want to do that as a fake like trad wife influencer. Like I want to start from scratch like an Instagram account, and I want to make it really aesthetic, and I want to do, I don't know if I want to do like 1950s. I kind of want to do like a Kelly Havens type of thing. Like I want to go real biblically old school with it. Like I want to be like Laura Ingalls Wilder. Here's my like homemade apple pie from scratch. I'm like stone ground the like wheat for the flour by myself, like doing something like that, and then trying to become like a Christian influencer from scratch, and then like pretending that like pretending I have a baby, but then like censoring the baby's face so you can't tell that it's like a fake. Like having one of my like friends pretend to be like my husband, like doing something like that, and then just slowly through that like indoctrinating them with consent. But just like teaching, like taking a really long route around into teaching them about how consent works. Like about how like actually like man and wife are supposed to be equally yoked, and like they're supposed to like have each other's bodies equally, and not just the wife and not just the husband owning the wife and blah blah blah. Like maybe I could do good if I did that, or maybe it would tell me a lot about the kinds of people who follow that sort of content, because I honestly don't know how much of it is just like bot farm stuff. That's my new conspiracy theory for basically everything. And I'm like, why are there so many people that are into this online? This is actually not that many people. It's just a lot of fake accounts or empty accounts leaving comments to become more legitimate, to then unlock things that they can use on their accounts, or to have some kind of footprint that makes it look like authentic engagement, and then they can sell that account to be used for like botting services or something. I don't know. But then I can also start my like godly, I could have like a godly woman's sex course, because that's the hot commodity. There's 2 of them. Okay, actually, legit, real question. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Because this is like my hobby lane, but it's not really my traditional YouTube lane, but I feel like it's related. There are currently 2 Christian influencers who, just for the record, let's be real clear, are like homophobic, transphobic. They're not like wholesome, positive Christian influencers. They're the ones who like tell women that they're sluts for wearing yoga pants, like those kinds of Christian influencers. 2 of them currently have a marriage/biblical sex course that they're selling. Should I kind of want to make a video about this. Because I feel like people need to, 1, know how to recognize scams, and then 2, as somebody who talks about like sex and relationships and consent and queerness and all those things from multiple different angles that people like this absolutely hate, I find it really funny that like completely uneducated Christian women who like can't even, I'm not even kidding you, they can't shop for lingerie to wear for their husband on a website with naked women on it. Like, they won't go to Victoria's Secret. They have their own special, separate Christian, godly lingerie store online that they go to that only uses mannequins and does not show anything on a model. Because if there was a human involved, then your husband might sin by gazing upon a beautiful woman with big bazingas. So, you know, you gotta protect your husband and his poor childlike eyeballs. I want to join Evie's godly woman sex course. I think it'd be funny to make my own spoof version. But then there's like not a good way to do that. That's like not still almost accidentally a scam. But I would like to explore somehow without paying for them, because I'm sure if I look on the internet for long enough, somebody has leaked the material from these courses somewhere. And I can browse them and tell you what I think about them. Because I'm going to tell you already that they're probably kind of garbage. But I am very curious. I'm not even kidding you. It is really advertised as godly lingerie. That's what they say. They're like, this is like how Christian influencers make money, is they take sponsorships from companies where it's like, have you ever wanted to wear something sexy for your husband? Because first of all, for some reason, born again Christian conservative men that believe porn is evil love putting their wives in lingerie. Like there's, I don't know what it is, because in my dating experience, it's like there's a really big age gap where like if somebody is over the age of 40, that was like the shortest car honk I've ever heard in my life. That was like a honk and a half. If you have if you're over 40, you're more likely to appreciate lingerie than somebody who's like, I would say between like 18 and like 30. And then people between like 30 and 40 are kind of a wild card other way. But like the longer amount of time you've had access to internet pornography, the less likely you are to appreciate lingerie. But because these like super conservative Christian guys are typically all really super sheltered, a lot of them are super into the idea of lingerie. Like way more than like anyone else I've ever met that doesn't just legit have a fetish for it. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. First thing I ended the stream was pink bazookas. I'm glad that those were your first words you heard from me. That was the most important words that I said. Yeah, godly underwear. Yeah, you mean the Mormon drawers. Yeah, exactly. It's the Mormon undergarments. That's what I'm talking about. Yep. Although these are not Mormon influencers. I don't know what the Mormons are up to. The trad Mormons, they're the most terrifying. Like, what do you mean you wake up in the morning, drive to your job as a preschool teacher, and the first thing that you consume is like 3 Mountain Dews with like a half a cup of whipped cream in it, and several different types of sugars, syrups, and also maraschino cherries. What do you mean that's the first beverage you drink in the morning? That should be demonic. If I had 3 Mountain Dews first thing in the morning, I would not be acting any kind of godly way, I'll tell you that. Of course my course would be trans inclusive. The whole point of me being a fake Christian influencer would be so I could like weave in like trans and queer acceptance and like consent stuff and all of that, absolutely. But if you are looking at actual for real Christian influencers, godly sex courses, they're trans exclusive and they're transphobic in the way that like anything kind of is when you talk about stuff is like marriage is when a woman with a vagina marries a man with a penis, and then we're gonna set up some real uncomfortable dynamics of how we think that your sex life is going based on that premise. Like your husband is a horn dog and wants it 24/7 and you just want to be left alone so you can do the laundry. Well, here's how to navigate that problem. Like that's what these courses are like. Or occasionally sometimes they will talk about the women being rapaciously horny and not leaving their husbands alone, and what to do as a horny woman. Is it godly to get on top? Is it godly to wake your husband up in the middle of the night for sex and like use his morning wood to bounce on it a little? Like, I don't know. Like, these are the things that we need to have answered by our Christian sex courses. Am I allowed to wake up my godly husband in the middle of the night and utilize his morning wood for procreative purposes? These are the things we need to know. If I had that much caffeine and sugar, I would be fired for bouncing around like Roger Rabbit while at work. Yeah. Maybe they can get away with it because they teach children, and so, you know, they just act really like high energy, and it works because of they're not like trying to sit down and have a productive meeting at 8 a.m. They're like, you know, having I don't know what kindergarten teachers do in the morning, having like dress up time or story time or whatever, and they're just extra animated while they're reading the book. I'm imagining that the fake horse having the 4chan trans women are like any other woman property meme. Oh, Jesus. Oh, that actually would be kind of funny. Oh, that actually explains a lot about 4chan, honestly. I've never heard that before, but now that I know that, it suddenly some things are clicking together. Now that makes more sense. Wait, what part of using morning wood to bounce on it is confusing? What part of that do we need to explain? I honestly hate how a lot of BDSM stuff is only centered around male and female because I'm non-binary. Oh, I dislike that too. I will say, at least in my experience, not reading things as a non-binary person, but at least as how I perceive the language, there has been a positive shift in how like books are published and how classes are taught, where there are very few educators that I know of who will default to she, her equal submissive, he, him equal dom. Like a lot of people are very good at using they, and of course, you know, if they're like monogamous and they're a cis woman and like their partner happens to be a man, like they can't really speak to other types of BDSM experiences while they're teaching, and that's unfortunate. And they might slip into using some language now and again, but I would say the default these days for a lot of BDSM education is, okay, well, maybe this isn't my experience and I can't speak universally, but I'm going to default to more inclusive pronouns. But I think there's still, for some people and how they talk, there is definitely still a default flavor of like, you can kind of tell that this is following sort of a heterosexual model, but I wouldn't even say it's the majority. But also, I've had the good fortune of, you know, being able to go to a lot of BDSM conventions and travel and take classes from lots of people. And I certainly have taken a lot of classes from and learned a lot from like non-binary people and trans people and queer people and people in all different relationship styles, monogamous, polyamorous, all sorts of different things. But the most popular voices you will sometimes see, I think can be like assumed maybe to be cishet when they're not. Or maybe it's just kind of people default into talking about things in a more heterosexually kind of way, even if that's not reality. A lot of conservative Christians have many similarities to BDSM, but without the safeguards and respect and everything that makes it safe and fun. That is more or less the point, yes. Trans-inclusive radical misogyny is the best. Don't put that on Twitter. The rad femmes will find it and they'll be really confused. And they'll be like, look, see, the trans people are our enemies and they align with conservatives. Meanwhile, we're aligning with conservatives to bash on them. So you make that make sense. Not confusing, just surprising from the ace influencer herself. I mean, that's like why it's funny. I mean, I get exposed to the same memes everyone else does. Well, I actually don't know about that. Maybe I don't. But like, I see people on Twitter talking about that kind of thing all the time. I know how to string words together. I know what the horny Christian women say they want. I know what they imply in their TikTok videos and in their Instagram reels and in their Instagram stories, where they talk about like how horrible it is to be a godly Christian wife and to just desire your husband so much and not being able to do anything about it, and like how to deal with those feelings, and like, you know. I go by they, them, and I'd say I lean more towards submissive. I'm also pansexual. Yeah, oh, and also I had this thought too. I don't know if you looked at the BDSM community, like, is it, like, does it swing one way or the other with, like, you know, maybe there's more representation of, like, binary trans folk versus non-binary, and, like, maybe that makes certain other groups feel less represented, and, like, I'm curious about that. I'm not sure. Can a girl just optimize herself for his pleasure without it being a misogynist thing? I mean, I would argue sometimes by optimizing yourself for their pleasure, you're optimizing yourself for your own pleasure too. Because if your pleasure, you know what I'm saying? Like, if his pleasure is your pleasure, then your pleasure being for his pleasure is also your pleasure. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Is it a meme? I don't have social media except YouTube. Oh, yeah. People, I don't know if it's like a big meme, but definitely people will, as a joke, like talk about certain sexual activities with like, you know, I just want to bounce on it or whatever. Like, there's like kind of cutesy phrases that people use quite a bit to refer to certain sexual acts, and I find them to be very funny. Personally speaking, because it's like, yeah, that is like kind of what you're doing. It's almost like self-aware in a way that I find endearing, but then also it sort of is abstracting away sex from it being sex, and like that maybe isn't a good thing, because like, I have multiple feelings about that. I find interesting how many Christmas-themed BDSM things you can do. Rudolph the Red Ball Gag Reindeer. Oh yeah, lots of ways to do kinky Christmas BDSM stuff, absolutely. Yeah, there's like, you can do like present ribbon bondage. You can do, you could make like, you know, chopstick gags? You can make like chopstick gags with like peppermint sticks. You can do wet and messy play. With I don't know, like just like whipped cream, and you can do like service submission. You can do drink service, but with like hot chocolate instead of whiskey. Like, there's so many possibilities. Absolutely. Reindeer play replacing pony play during Christmas. Yeah, exactly like that. What is still a mystery to me is the lack of clearly switch-coded videos online. What's up with that? You mean like educational videos? Or do you mean like adult content? Because I can't speak to the adult content part because I have no idea. But for education stuff, I mean, it really honestly is just mostly submissives making videos. And I don't know why that is. Well, I don't know actually about that. I think there are switches who are like exactly 50-50 and really do both things in equal measure. But online, a lot of what you see is, like, if you're talking about dominance, the majority of dominants online that you hear from who are making content are usually pro-doms. And if they have a switch side, they don't advertise it because it's not good for their business, because most, like, maybe not most, but a lot of male submissives who would be looking to pay for services from a female dominant don't want to play with a femdom that they think has been, like, tainted by submitting to men, which is weird and gross, but that's how some people feel about it. So that's why they maybe don't advertise the fact that they really switch with, like, their life partners or play partners or at dungeons or for certain activities. Very, very rarely will you see a female dominant online who's a service provider talk openly about also switching or bottoming to some things. It does happen, but fairly rarely. Then you don't have male doms stick around to be educators for very long online anyways, which I think is weird because how is that? Like, I almost sort of expect it would be more attractive to people who want to use their status as a dom to attract potential play partners or to do certain things, and it for whatever reason has never really caught on in a big way. They're like, oh, you could become an influencer dominant and then use that as a way to find submissives, and I'm grateful that they largely haven't, but that is an open market that doesn't really seem to get tapped for whatever reason. I think it's probably honestly too much work for too little reward for a lot of doms. And then for submissives, you definitely have submissives who are primarily submissive, or their online persona is people see them primarily being an S-type, but they also switch, or they at least maybe top occasionally, or they're verse or something. Like Pup Amp is that way. I'm also that way. Like, I don't identify with the label of switch, but like I am a submissive and I'm also a sadist, and I do top occasionally, but I'm definitely mostly a submissive. And so that's like, if people are going to get a summation of me on the internet through looking at my content, they're probably mostly going to perceive me as a submissive. And because Pup Amp has been making content with like his daddy, Mr. Christopher, for years and years and years, the perception of that relationship is that Mr. Christopher is a D-type and Amp is an S-type, and that's their thing. But as maybe more recent experience has shown, Mr. Christopher is a switch, Pup Amp is a switch, and I, don't think that a lot of their content is explicitly about switching, but like it is there. Like but I think people just perceive them a certain way because of their dynamic, and they're not seeing the other dynamics that they each have with like other people, right? Yeah. Yeah. You could use a big peppermint stick as a dildo. Keep it wrapped, please. That sounds, both the pepperminty part of that and the sugar part of that sounds like a really bad idea. For putting into a vagina. I would not recommend that if you are going to. I mean, you could use it as a mouth thing, kind of like a tongue depressor kind of situation, like deep throat training deal. You could use it for that. But PIV dildo use as a peppermint stick, I would definitely not advise that. I'm gonna say no on that one. Be tied with ribbon, reindeer play, also do fun stuff for other holidays. I've made videos about that before. Actually, I've made videos for holiday scenes, for like the autumn, for Halloween, for Valentine's Day. I've made ones in previous years for Christmas. So in like winter themed scenes and like outdoor scenes, and like I have lots of scene idea videos, and it's been a while since I made one, so maybe it's time to bring that back around. But yeah, there's lots and lots of ways to do that kind of thing. Yeah, see you, Lexi. Bye. Yep, definitely. Take care of yourself. Have a little lie down. Yep. Human perception is a tricky thing, in my opinion. It is. It really, really is. Yeah, night. Okay, how about we do some questions? Because I've been rambling. I'm gonna go over to my Q&A box. If you would like it to be sure that I answer your question, you can put your question in the Q&A box up above, or you can use a super chat and it will show up on screen here, and it'll read your question out loud, and then I will answer it right away. But yeah, however, peppermint stick might work well for figging. I mean, it's the sugar part of it that I would be worried about. I don't know if he used it anally, if that would be... Somebody would have to take one for the team and experiment on using a curved peppermint stick anally and seeing if that's like as terrible idea as it seems. Because I mean, it's kind of shaped like an anal hook. So like, it's not like the worst idea, but I'm also not going to recommend it either. I'm not going to say that you should do that in any way, but you might just of your own free will, in which case I can't stop you. So, alas. Alas, poor Horatio. I knew him well. All right. Questions. I keep forgetting that I can like and react to people's like messages now in the stream. We have one here from Rasan. What is erotic wrestling? I've been hearing about this concept for a while now, but haven't found anyone to explain what it entails. That is a great question. Very specific. So I feel like there's people... okay. How do I want to attack this? I've definitely heard of erotic wrestling as like a fetishy porn category. Like, erotic wrestling usually means, from my very brief exposure to it, naked people, most often two women, but other gender combinations I'm sure exist as well, wrestling each other naked, like lubed/oiled up, and doing some kind of sexual Greco-Roman wrestling. That definitely happens. Don't have a lot of exposure to it, so that's about as best as I can describe it. In the kink community, there are people who will do rough body play, wrestling, takedown and capture, something along those lines, like primal play even can overlap into these areas too, where it might be sexual for the people involved, but it's more like fun roughhousing that you're doing as an adult. Like, it's not like, it can be various levels of sexual, and I've taken like a number of rough body play and wrestling and grappling classes that are taught in the kink community by other kinky people, and I've taken versions of that where it's about doing really quick takedowns and then getting somebody into a sexual position, and then it leading to, if you want to go there, leading to coitus, although it also just leaves the genital region exposed, so that means you can also, like, you know, that opens up somebody's body for, figging or CBT or clit punching or, like, paddling somebody in the balls or doing whatever. Like, it can lead to sex, but it can also just leave a person exposed in the genital region for other purposes too. But usually people that are doing things like wrestling and rough body play in the kink community, it's done because the sensation is fun, and like getting to roughhouse and let out your energy in that specific way is enjoyable to people. But it generally doesn't have overtly sexual elements to it so much as it is like just having fun with a struggle, and then you can add in sexualized things on top of it to make it more overtly erotic. Like, maybe that means like fondling somebody's genitals, or like pinning them down by the dick, or I don't know, like punching them in the chest, or doing like nipple torture, or like maybe the point is that you're like wrestling each other, and then whoever ends up being able to penetrate the other one is like the winner. Like, it can get more or less erotic, but certainly the phrase erotic wrestling I don't really hear so much in the kink community. That seems to be more of an adult content thing, but there's versions of that kind of idea that exist in kink that are just done differently than how you would see it in adult content, is how I have seen that before. Yeah. Allegedly non-erotically, there's also Turkish oil wrestling. Allegedly non-erotically is a good way of putting that, absolutely. But yes, there are definitely people that do. Like, I've been to a number of camping trips over the years that involve like kinky lube wrestling, or I've seen people that have done like oiled up, like Greco-Roman wrestling tournament fundraisers for like local community stuff. Like, in the kink community, people will do it as a fundraiser thing. So it is a thing that exists, but it's not the best. Oh, no worries. If you want to try putting it again just in the regular chat, I will keep an eye out for it. Yeah, Bandita is getting a heckin' rest for sure. Yeah. Yeah, glad you can make it. Hey Evie, do you take artwork? I don't know what that means. But if you want to send something to me as a physical artwork, you can send it to my P.O. box, which is down below. It's like in my video descriptions, the very, very bottom of my description box is my P.O. box information. And if you mean digital stuff, you can email me. If you would like to. My business email is also available on my YouTube homepage. But I mean, I'm not gonna like throw it in the garbage if that's what you mean. Just hopefully it's normal art, I guess, considering the context of what we just talked about. Oh, as someone who isn't very financially secure, do you have any advice for a dom that doesn't feel worthy of their title? So to be extremely clear, you do not need to have money to be a dominant partner. When I got into BDSM, my first dominant partner ever was like working super part-time, had no money to their name, was barely making enough money to pay for the roof over their head, and that did not matter in the slightest for our BDSM dynamic. Certainly there were things that they wished they could have done, like toys they wished they could have purchased, or events they wished they could have gone to when they couldn't afford a ticket. But they were not more dominant when they started to make more money, and they're not less dominant when they didn't make money, or if they had been making like no money at all. So like I would say like find partners that share this belief. There are definitely S-types out there that are more materialistic and want dominant partners who will pay for dinners and buy fancy toys and take them to all the events and dress them up and pay for expensive lingerie. But those are all optional things. And if you're looking for materialistic people, that's just going to reinforce that belief that like dominance is tied to physical wealth and means. Definitely having some amount of money makes it easier to be in the kink community because, again, paying for memberships, paying for tickets. I will say a lot of places now will have reduced cost tickets to prevent there being a cost barrier for people in the community because so many people in our community are like working part-time gig workers. Like we have people in our world that are all across the socioeconomic spectrum. So you get a little bit of everyone, and there are a lot of organizations that are trying to make things affordable so that way there isn't a barrier to being able to do things ethically and in a safer way. As far as cost goes, obviously time is a different factor entirely. But you definitely don't need to be making money, and I think finding people that understand that is gonna be key. But I definitely have met people. I've said on the flip side, I have met people that have tried to buy their way into dominance, and that doesn't work either. It's like trying to buy your way into being a confident person. Like you either have it or you don't. And the way to get there if you don't have it is not simply through buying expensive things. Like you can be the dominant that has all the most expensive gear and has a whole dungeon in their house, but if you have a bad personality, if you don't get along with people easily, if you're like argumentative or domineering, or you yell at people, or you fly off the handle, you have a short temper, on down the laundry list of like red flags for doms, right? You don't respect consent, you don't like negotiate thoroughly, you treat everything as like a my way or the highway scenario. If you have that kind of personality, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Yes, somebody will probably put up with it for your money, but silver lining, and this is a silver lining, I'm aware, if you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have means, you will always know that if somebody's submitting to you, it's because they authentically want to submit to you and not because they're sucking up to you to get money out of you. And that's something that I know from people that have either come into a lot of money, like they got like a windfall thing, or they suddenly made a ton of money. Like from that point onward, unless you're dating other wealthy people, like you're always suspicious if people are with you because they like you, or because, you know, of your finances, or because of the status you have in the community, or whatever. And that just like is not helpful at all. It's not a good feeling to have. You don't have to have a lot of money to be a dom. Also, it is hard to feel dominant when a society is telling you that you're lesser, but dominance and submission is an interpersonal dynamic that goes against toxic norms. That is a great way of phrasing it. I should be very clear about that. Like, yes, obviously, like, there's a reason why you would feel like you feel less dominant when you don't have the means that you wish that you had, either to provide for yourself or for other people. But that's a social thing. That's like mainstream societal norms tell you that your value is based on how much wealth you accumulate or how, like, quote unquote productive you are as a member of society. And that does not determine your value as a person, just point blank period. And it doesn't determine your value as a dominant. And I think getting to step back from that opinion of yourself or basing your worth off of that is not only helpful for just your everyday mental well-being, but also good for how you feel with kink also. Yeah, and there's as far as, like, you know, I feel like I don't have access to the same things. There are so many options for DIY now. There's so many ways to get together a good play bag of kink toys without really having to spend that much money. Especially if you are in the community, you'll probably meet people who will be more than happy to, like, sell you things cheaply or let you borrow stuff to see how you like it, or, you know, give things away to you like secondhand, or you can DIY stuff, right? You can use like kitchen spatulas and all sorts of different little fun gadgets. Like, and even just, like, you know, disposable stuff like ice cubes and clothespins and things that people maybe overlook later on in their kink journey, but are worth it as well. Yeah, thank you. I asked that mainly because I struggle with depression based on my finances, so I appreciate you explaining that a lot. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm so sorry. Totally understand, like, feeling depressed based on your finances, because that is a big struggle and it is a big life stressor. And if you don't have the means for your life to be comfortable, if you are having to think about literally every single penny, like, it's going to be hard psychologically to be in a dominant headspace. In which case, that kind of goes back to a lot of my more standard suggestions I give for people that want to get into a dominant headspace, which is like setting up a container for that to exist in, and then, like, willingly stepping away from, like, thinking about money, thinking about your financial situation, thinking about your health, thinking about other things in your life that might be distracting, and allowing yourself that time and space to let go for like an hour or two while you play with somebody, because you can be there and present in the moment, and spending that hour or two having a relaxing evening with a partner or getting to do something really fun or invigorating, that's ultimately going to pay dividends and, like, help you be a better person and feel better overall, more than just, like, fretting about money for another hour will, right? Yeah. But I feel you on that. Also, Hammond implements show you care if you take the time to carve out a paddle from wood, for example. That is more impressive for subs than somebody that just did buy all the things. That's also true too. Like, getting stuff that's really customizable that, like, you picked out and made yourself, and also help you, like, stand out too. Like, I know lots of people in this scene that have made a name for themselves as a top or a dom because of the curated things that they have in their toy collection. They get known as, like, oh, you're the person who has all the canes or all the paddles, or you have, like, the silly, funny DIY stuff. Like, you're the person who has the, like, rubber chicken and the meat tenderizer and the rubber mallet and the kitchen spatulas and the and so on and so on and so on, of, like, here's all the silly fun things that you get to use that, like, are non-traditional, but because they're non-traditional, maybe they lend themselves really well to, like, you know, pet play or DDLG or clown role play, or just generally silly, fun, lighthearted scenes, or, like, silly torture scenes where it's like, what do you mean it, like, hurt so bad when I hit you with, like, silicone spatula? Like, it's just a spatula. What's the big deal? Like, you can get really silly. Excuse me. You get really silly with it, and I think getting silly with it is underestimated. At the old dungeon before the move, they would have toy tastings where people could come in and experience new toys and play in a safe environment. Yeah, there's lots of dungeons that do that, where they have, usually the main one is like bottom tasting, where a bottom can come in and sample different experiences, but I have also seen places that do top tastings. I have seen people let you come and just, like, try the toys. Like, one of the first dungeons I ever went to, they had kind of a little, like lending library sort of area for toys where, like, I mean, you couldn't take them home with you, but if you were there that night for a play party, you know, you could try out a foam bat and a couple of different canes and a couple of floggers, and like the understanding was there was a risk to using something that like a bunch of people that you didn't know had used, but you know, you could sample stuff, you could see how it felt in your hand, you could see how it felt to receive that sensation. And I'm pretty sure that was a donation from like a local person that ran like an online like dungeon supply store or something, and that was really generous. And I wish that more dungeons had that, because it is such a good resource for people. Because like, okay, you maybe want to try flogging. Well, if you want to get anywhere near a halfway decent flogger that's actually made from real leather, minimum probably $90, probably. And that's for like a standard deer leather. If you're looking at like heavier stuff on up, everything just gets like more expensive the more leather is in it, the bigger the toy is. And like, how do you know if you like it or not, and then you spent $90 and then like you can't return it? These places don't have return policies. Like, you're just stuck with something that you maybe don't even like, and that could have been like a set of rattan canes, that could have been maybe a really nice paddle or two, that could have been some bondage gear. And now, like, you just have a toy you're not ever going to use again until maybe you find somebody that you can resell it to, or there's like a flea market thing, or like, but there's an opportunity cost to that, essentially, is what I'm saying. Also, you can make a wicked cane from an epoxy-treated hardwood dowel. Also, check your local library. More and more of them have tools to check out and use. Oh, interesting. That is interesting. Oh, like for literally DIYing your own stuff. That's a good point, actually. Like, if you want to do, because there are online, if you browse on FetLife, there are groups for DIY stuff, and that does include DIY furniture, a more complicated DIY like leather stuff, like making a really, really simple like leather flogger, or even just like a leather like beater, like literally just like learning how to like roll up a piece of leather, like you're making like a fruit roll up, and then, you know, putting a handle on it, and you know, you're good to go. Like, learning how to do that, how to select leather, looking for stuff on sale if you do want to DIY your own stuff. Sometimes, depending on how much equipment is needed, you might just kind of break even on making your own thing. But sometimes you can find a good deal, like at a local like leather store, and you know, you're not worried about it maybe being the most beautiful thing ever with the most amazing finished edges and, you know, gold embossed whatever. Like, if you don't care about that stuff, you can make some really nice stuff DIY that'll last you for quite a while. Maybe until you save up for a better version, or just like forever. Anal beads lightly used. There were no sex toys that I remember. I didn't look for them. I don't remember there being sex toys in the lending library pile. I'm sure there are places where that thing exists, but not that I have seen, I think for good reason. Although, like, people use floggers on people's genitals. And leather is more absorbent than silicone, but there's no research indicating that leather is like a transmission vector for I don't know, HPV or something. At our last school roleplay, we had a wood class that showed how to make a paddle. Oh, that's awesome! I love that. I would love if communities did more of that too. I know a lot of it's just like having the space and somebody with the expertise and the demand for it, but I would love it if places did more like DIY stuff. Because like whenever I ask people like, what would you really like to see videos about, or like what are you the most curious about that you don't have resources for, like DIY stuff comes up all the time. Like, people want to know how to build their own furniture, they want to learn how to make their own toys, and unless you get really lucky, depending on where you live, most places just don't have that. And it's something that you can find stuff for online, but it's different to have somebody walk you through it step by step and check your work and give you suggestions and modifications on the fly, versus downloading a free PDF from some website somebody on like Reddit recommends, and then having to follow things yourself and then just hope it kind of looks right, but not knowing because there's not somebody in person who's watching over your shoulder who says, oh, this is how it should be, or make this adjustment or whatever. A cake frosting spreader as a riding crop? That actually is a great idea. I love that, yeah. I took woodshop class in high school, and so I would know how to make my own paddles. I mean, hey, that's a good skill to have. You can definitely utilize that. Absolutely. Caught my. It's weird not having earrings in right now. It's like I'm not used to my ears being like blank, but they needed it. I had like different earrings while I was visiting my family, and like I don't think my ears like loved having them in for multiple days, so we're just gonna leave them as they are. Yeah, building our furniture and then modifying stuff for BDSM. Also a thing too. Yeah, modifying stuff. Definitely an option. But all right, more questions. Oh, this is a complicated question. How do you feel about events doing in-depth background checks and rejecting people with said backgrounds versus letting the people explain their past on a person-to-person vetting system? I mean, so if they're doing I'm assuming by background check, you're meaning a literal background check. Like you are meaning I ran you through a database and I saw if you had any like felony convictions. In which case, it depends on what they'd be rejected for, right? Like, okay, 15 years ago, they got like felony possession of marijuana before it was legalized in your state, and you know, now they're out and they don't have any sort of like violent arrest record. Somebody being rejected from a kink venue for a background like that, like just because it's a felony on paper, seems a little ludicrous to me. But if we're talking about like 2 years ago, you had multiple restraining orders put out against you by multiple ex-girlfriends, and you know, you have a warrant out against you, or you know, you have a previous conviction for stalking from a couple years ago, then I'd be a lot more concerned about letting somebody with that background into my community. But different BDSM community spaces, like they're all a privilege to be a part of. They're all like, they're not like outside of maybe like Folsom and a couple other places. Like for the most part, it's private venues, private organizers who are allowed to have their own standards for who they let into their space, and they have their own subjective criteria for what that means. I think going the route of like letting the person explain themselves and like their side of the story is inherently a little bit fraught, because if you're talking about, let's say, an assault conviction or a stalking conviction, if you're only talking to the person who was like accused of doing the stalking or accused of, you know, violating consent or doing, you know, some kind of, you know, non-victimless crime, you're only getting their side of the story. And so they've had maybe years to perfectly craft this like understandable, reasonable narrative of how the thing that they did wasn't actually that bad, or how like, you know, the judge threw the book at them for no reason, or how their ex really didn't have any evidence. And it's just like, again, if you have like a recent conviction for a violent crime, like why am I taking that risk that like you're not gonna, you like you, if you, I don't know, I guess my feeling about that is I feel like if you are the sort of person who is doing the kinds of things and then getting actual convictions for them that they would end up on a background check, I would believe that if you're the kind of person who can get away with doing that thing and then end up in the legal system as a result of that, I would be very worried about you being able to sweet talk your way through things, about having a high level of charisma and being able to make things like just seem reasonable when they're really not. And I'd rather be like cautious with that. Like if it was my dungeon and it was me, I wouldn't want people in my venue that, you know, have like, and by like, also what does recent mean? Like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like for me, depending what it is, like there's like no statute on that. It's just like, if as an adult, like legally an adult over the age of 18, you have a history of violence against people, enough to get it documented and that it would show up in a background check, I am gonna probably not want you at my event, just to be on the safe side, at least a play party event. Munch may be a little bit of a different scenario depending on where it is. But I think what gets tricky is like, where do you draw the line? Like, how recent is recent enough? Like, okay, like, 2 years ago you got convicted of like statutory rape because you were like sexting a 14-year-old on the internet. And yeah, no, that's not gonna, no. But again, like, 15 years ago you had felony possession of marijuana. Like, that's not relevant to what would happen in a kink setting. So I don't really care too much about that. So it depends, but I know, like, again, it's so individual. And I think, like, just letting people explain their past is, like, if their past involves violent crimes with another person on the other end of it, who you're probably not ever going to hear from, how useful is that really? And vetting systems have their own problems, which is, if you are rich enough and well-liked enough, you can just find people who will be your vetting system and say, hey, go talk to this person. And they, of course, will be more than happy to speak highly of you, but that doesn't give you the full picture. Because, they're not giving you the phone number or the email addresses to contact, ex-partners or people they've hurt in the past. Like, they're just not. Humans don't generally have an incentive, right? They're not going to be like, oh yeah, if you want me to go to your party, you should talk to the person who says I assaulted them. That'll be like a good, that'll give me, like, if you're saying like, oh, can you give us contact for references? Like, it just doesn't. If you're asking the person directly for people to vet them, as opposed to asking generally, hey, who knows anything about this person? Like, you're not going to get unbiased responses that way. It's not going to be that helpful. Also, always go local for wood. If you are doing furniture, find a plywood specialist. Yeah. Go local in general. Big fan of going local. But anyways, hopefully that answers your question. I know that's like a big area. But I think at this point in the community, we don't really have any one system that works really well without at least excluding some people. But I'm on the side that, like, excluding some people for the sake of safety or creating a particular environment, I think, is worth it. So that's my opinion. What are your main kinks nowadays? Is pet play still one of them? Pet play, definitely up there. I would say probably out of all of my kinks, the most important to me, but that I've probably talked about the least on my channel, maybe until like kind of recently, is primal play. It's always been really important to me, but I just didn't find people that wanted to do that. Like, I had partnerships where that just like wasn't a thing that people were into, and so I didn't really get to explore it. But in the last couple of years, primal play is definitely really, really big. I would say that influences kind of everything else that I do to a certain extent, so it'd probably be in a like top 5 non-ordered list. My most important kinks would be primal play, pet play, bondage, service submission. The 5th one, what would I put for number 5? Probably like objectification, maybe, but like in a positive way. That's probably what I would put there, somewhere in that neighborhood. Those would be my most important kink wheelhouse, and definitely more on the B&D side versus the S&M side of BDSM for sure. But yeah, those are my main kinks. I hear a lot about not using honorifics when new to BDSM. Can we talk about that, please? And thank you. What way is that meant? Okay, so I'm gonna answer this kind of 2 different ways, because that could mean 2 different things. I think what you probably mean is like people saying that you need to earn a title. Like, earn being called a dom, being called somebody's slave, yada yada. I get the intention behind that. I think there's a lot of people that have been into kink for a very long time that get fussy, for lack of a better phrase, when people come in who they perceive as new and inexperienced and like steal titles, like saying that they're a master or a dominant when they haven't earned it yet. Because, well, but you haven't really done BDSM before. How do you know that you're this thing? Like, you're so young. How can you know what you are? Blah, blah, blah. And that I don't love, because, well, we don't really do that for submissives, right? Like, if somebody says that they're a submissive or a pet or whatever, we don't say, well, you just haven't done it for long enough, so you're not allowed to call yourself that yet. So it seems like a little bit of a double standard. The one exception to that is probably slave, because more people feel like slave is like an earned thing that you get from somebody else, and calling yourself a slave like day one of being in BDSM is generally frowned upon. So people definitely act like, okay, you need to earn this, you need to like work harder. And I think it sort of feels like when people say you need to like earn your tattoos through them being a painful experience, like not really. One, I don't know, there's like so many reasons for this. There's the spirit, I think, what they're trying to do, which is prevent people from coming in and declaring themselves a dom when they don't even really know what they are yet, because they have not even tried doing it before, and then getting swept up in a relationship and then hurting themselves or other people because of their knowledge or lack of knowledge, actually. And they feel like that could be prevented if we just put more barriers around who's allowed to call themselves certain terms, because then S-types and slaves or whoever would not go to be in relationships with these people, because, you know, they would treat a dom in training differently than a fully fledged dom, and so you're sort of misleading people by calling yourself a dom or a master. And I think there's a little bit of credence to that. Like, certainly there are people who will pop up out of nowhere, they've never really done BDSM in real life before, and will call themselves certain titles, and they don't even really know if they actually like BDSM or not, because they've never actually tried it before, and that can be misleading. I would say the most misleading version of that is when people are like, oh, I'm like, there's a difference between saying like, I'm James and I identify as a master, and I am Master James. Because calling yourself something like Master blah 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 or Domina blah 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 or something of that format has more of a connotation in the community of an earned title that's been given to you by others, as opposed to you giving that title to yourself. Now, if you're just saying, you know, my name is John, my name is whatever, and I identify as a dom, I identify as a master, I feel like that's a lot less offensive, because that's more of a descriptor of like the style of relationship that you're aiming for, versus maybe kind of falsely declaring a level of like scene acumen that you don't actually really have yet. But yeah, I think people get a little too judgy too quickly about like, oh, you're too new to be this, you're too young to be this. Like, it's, I know people that have been, and then also part of this, my opinion is, I've known people in the community that have been doing BDSM for 10 plus years who call themselves a dom, that are sometimes worse at being a dominant partner than people who are relatively newer to the scene and maybe only have like a couple of months to a couple of years of experience, because they might be calcified in what they think being a dominant means, or what it looks like, or how they relate to dominance, and so they are just very rigid with how they approach relationships, and they're not flexible around their partner's needs and what their preferences and desires are. Whereas newer dominant partners, because they're still learning, they're oftentimes more flexible in their approach and how they identify and how they think relationships should go, or what they're open to experiencing. I think that can actually be a positive, to have somebody who's like more flexible and open while still acknowledging that they're dominant. So just having years in the scene does not really equate to being a better dominant, though we sometimes use it as a proxy thing. So that's why people get up in arms about it. Now, the other way that you could mean this is not referring to people as a title out of the gate first upon meeting them, right? Like meeting somebody and then like by default calling them sir or ma'am, or you know, referring to them as mistress, or calling them master, or calling them sir, or calling them insert title here, and not leaping into that before you have a relationship or a dynamic with that person. If that's what you mean, then I 100% agree. Yeah, like, don't do that. Don't presume titles or gender, because that's oftentimes implicit in using titles for people to a certain extent. Like, don't assume those things. That is something that, when I say you have to earn it, what I mean is you have to get to the point of knowing that person well enough to know how they want to be referred to, know what they want to be called, and to have that thing with them, as opposed to just blanketly any female in a room that you see running up and calling her ma'am or mistress or something, because you're just trying to get any person to act dominant towards you, even if it means like yelling at them or doing something like that. Even calling out all the thirst bots on Twitter who claim to be mistresses or mistress name. I mean, it is a real problem. It is a problem for sure. I didn't go 60K into debt getting my master's degree, being ignored by the professors who saw me only as a funding source for their pet PhD students, to let some upstart call themselves master. I mean, fair. One of your kinks is objectification. What do you mean? I mean that I like being treated like a precious, tiny, valuable object. That's what I mean by that. I like being objectified, i.e., by which I mean I literally like being treated as an object, as a toy, but not in a degrading, you're worthless, disgusting worm way, but in a like, you are my precious Fabergé egg, there is only one of you, but also I can mistreat my object if I want because it is an object, is what I mean by that, yeah. Just because I'm a dom doesn't mean you need to call me sir when we don't have a relationship, is something I live by, yeah. It's people just, they think they're being polite. I think a lot of times it's well-intended. They think that they should show a level of deference, and somehow that knowledge has gotten, misinformation, has gotten passed down through the kinky generations, and people think, I'll find a dominant more quickly if I show deference by calling everyone sir and ma'am. And culturally, if where you live geographically, that's more normal in a vanilla context, that might be more okay. I want to leave room for that, because if you live in a social context where people sir and ma'am each other by default consistently in a vanilla context, that's one thing. But if you are, for example, in the Pacific Northwest, where no one is polite and no one uses titles at all for anyone in a vanilla context, nobody ever says sir or ma'am, that's going to be a no-go in a kink space. But if it's more normal somewhere else, then like, okay, it's more normal somewhere else, yeah. But yeah, good question. Hopefully that answered it. Yeah, just don't fling titles at people. And also, like, if somebody is going to try to gatekeep, oh, you can't call yourself master because you're only 25, and so how could you know what you really are yet, blah, blah, blah. Like, if somebody's going to do that, like, they don't control you. They can't stop you. They don't. Do they own your local dungeon? Do they, like, own FetLife? Like, you can, no one can stop you. That's the thing. Like, you can just actually do what you want. Like, you might have to deal with a shitty comment from, like, Master Bob so-and-so, who thinks that the only true way to do BDSM is how they did it in 1978. Like, but you also don't have to respect their opinion or give it any meaning in your life. You can just ignore it. You can just say, okay, well, people are going to send me shitty messages. I'm going to block them. That's fine. You can do that. It's a free world, because they can't stop you. They can only stop you if you let them stop you. If you could, would you do an angel/shepherd scenario for Christmas if given the chance? So, like, I picture like a shepherd dog, or do you mean like an angel coming down and talking to a shepherd, or ordering a shepherd to like go to the manger, like, or what scenario are you talking about? If we're talking about an angel coming down and talking to a shepherd dog, yes, I would do that scene. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know how that would happen. But I love a good Christian roleplay scenario. I don't do them too often, but I do like mucking around in Christianity, which I'm entitled to because I was raised Catholic, so I am allowed. Not that I don't dislike or even, like, I especially don't hate Christians or Christianity. I'm not one of those people. But, you know, it is my cultural upbringing, so I am allowed to poke fun at it, is more the point. I am having a nice holiday weekend. Thank you. Sadly, no snow, but, you know, can't get everything. Hi, Evie. What would be a good questions to interview a new dominant partner? Ooh, good questions. This is why I have things written down on a list, so that way I don't have to think of them all at once. But I'm going to assume that you said partner, so that indicates relationship. So if you're trying to get into a relationship with someone, these are sort of the flavors of questions that I would ask, especially if you're meeting in like a kink scenario and maybe you're not having that like more typical getting to know you period that you might with like a friend or like a match on a dating app or something like that. So I would ask things like, how much experience do you have? Like, how long have you been in the scene for? What brought you into the BDSM community? And I think this will tell you a lot about their like overall commitment to BDSM, what their interests are, right? Like if they say, you know, they got into it because, you know, in BDSM since they were like really young, and they joined the community at 18 because they knew it was totally going to be for them, and they've been around ever since. That's a very different answer than like, oh yeah, like 2 or 3 years ago, I was like hooking up with this girl and she was like super kinky. And then like she introduced me to like daddy roleplay. I thought it was like super hot. So then like, you know, I just kept, you know, after we broke up, I started to get more into BDSM because I was hoping to find another like daddy relationship. Like that would necessitate some follow-up questions that go into maybe another thing I would ask, which is like, how sexual or non-sexual is BDSM and power exchange for you? Do you want to combine the two? Always? None of the time? Do you want to keep them separate? How important is sex in a BDSM relationship to you? Give me the general framework of how your sexuality interfaces with BDSM. And again, different responses could be like, you know, I love doing like non-sexual pickup play. I have friends that I play with platonically. But in a romantic, long-term relationship, I would like sex to be included, but like how kinky that is varies. Versus somebody who's like, oh, I'm only interested in sexual BDSM, and that's like my whole reason for being in the community, and like I kind of just like don't understand like non-sexual BDSM, to be honest with you. So those could be some different answers there. I would also ask about like what does it mean to them to be a dominant? Like, okay, you say that you're a dom. What does that mean to you? How do you visualize yourself acting as a dominant in a relationship? What role do you want to play in somebody else's life as a dominant partner? Again, lots of different potential answers there. If they haven't thought about it, I think it's a red flag. If they haven't thought about answers to any of these questions, they're just like, you know what, I just don't know, I haven't really thought about it before. That's a red flag, because they should have some kind of inkling, because these are not super difficult questions. These are not deep philosophical questions. Other things that I would probably ask about include like, you know, what is your preference of relationship style? Are you polyamorous? Are you monogamous? If you are monogamous, what does that mean in terms of playing with other people or playing platonically with people or like threesomes or going to conventions or attending munches? Could be very different here. Somebody who's super monogamous who wants to find a monogamous life partner to be with forever is going to be in a different place for what they want from a relationship versus somebody who's polyamorous and already has 2 partners. So super, super important there. How involved do you want to be in the community? How do you handle kink education? Are you somebody that goes to munches regularly? So do they go to munches? Are they part of a local dungeon? How regularly do they read things, practice things, listen to podcasts, attend classes, do skill shares, talk to other doms? Do they go to social events, or do they only go to like sex parties, or do they only go to like big events to try and find a partner? Like, are they hoping to stay in the scene and be a member of the community, or do they see like the kink scene as maybe more of a tool but not really something that they're like a part of? Or are they not interested in any of it at all, and they just like, you know, they're not maybe into education or reading books or podcasts or anything like that, and they really would rather just like practice stuff at home in private with a partner, and like that's that. And I would also probably ask about like if they have previous experience with power exchange specifically. I want to know how that went. Like, you know, okay, if you're not together anymore, it ended for a reason. So is it just like kind of bog standard baseline incompatibility issues? Did you have trouble with communication? Did you have trouble with anger issues? Did you have trouble with like punishment dynamics? Do you have trouble like keeping up the relationship consistently? Like maybe it came and went very quickly, where, you know, sometimes you'd have a lot of kink and then sometimes it would be like none at all, and it was just like hard to sustain an interest in the relationship itself. Like investigate why that relationship didn't work or previous relationships didn't work, and then how you can prevent that from happening in the future. I would also think about like what their philosophies are around consent. That's a really big one. Like, what is their consent practice like? How do they feel about things like informed consent and irrevocable consent? Do they follow things like SSC versus RAC versus PRIC, if they subscribe to any of those at all? I would not say that it's necessarily a red flag if they don't, but if they do, it's good to know if you're aligned on that. Because some people are like, yeah, I don't really like say that I like am a RAC person or an SSC person, but like I believe in like having lots of check-ins during a scene. I use the traffic light system. I think consent can always be revocable. I try my best to inform my partners of what we're going to be doing before a scene happens. Like, not having a single nice little acronym or initialism for your relationship to consent is fine, just as long as they can describe what it is and it matches enough with yours to where it's not going to cause a problem. Also, generally knowing what this is kind of more like an interview question for like an actual job, would be like, what are your weaknesses? More specifically, what are your weaknesses like in relationships and as a dominant partner? Do they have self-awareness around that? Or do they just say, you know what, maybe I used to have issues, but I don't anymore because I fixed them all because I did therapy or I did this? That to me is kind of a red flag. If they're like, oh, no, I don't really have anything in particular that I think I'm like bad at, I just think that like other people can't handle me, that's a massive fucking red flag. Oh my god. Do not go past go. Do not collect $200. That's a giant old red flag. If they're like, yeah, like I have ADHD, so like I get really distracted and it's like hard for me to maintain a sustained interest in like one thing for a long period of time. So sometimes I have trouble like being consistent in the relationship or like showing up as consistently as I want, but like here's what I was thinking to like make that better in my future relationships, or like here's how I'm working on improving that in my everyday life. Again, it's about showing awareness. If things are maybe off, can they change that enough, or are they in the process of trying to work on it enough to where you feel positively about it and you feel like you could deal with that. And then, I think kind of just generally trying to ask some questions about like how they feel about submissives, like anything that's kind of important to you in your life and general life values would probably go here. So like, are you compatible in terms of like your relationship style and like life goals, right? Like, are you looking for like a life partner that like you can raise a family with? Do you want to get married? Are they totally opposed to marriage? I know these are like scary questions, and maybe you don't have to go there if obviously those things aren't things that you're interested in. But if you are interested in those things and you want a dominant partner who's going to be also your like spouse, and that you're going to have like kids together, or you're going to have some kind of, maybe not a traditional family, but some kind of like family-like structure in your life, like figure out if they're compatible with that or not. Because if they're not, you're just wasting everybody's time And you really, really do not want to waste somebody's time if one of you or the other like really wants a family and the other one doesn't, or really wants a romantic relationship and the other one doesn't. I'd be super clear, be really upfront. I know it's scary in any kind of new relationship to talk about the non-negotiables, but if they are genuinely non-negotiables for you, those things should be on the table early, so that way, again, you're just reducing the amount of time wasting. But then, like, general, like, lifestyle things, life goal things, like, you know, again, do you want to, like, settle down and have a family in, like, one town and, like, put down really deep roots, but then, you know, still go to munches and things like that? Or are they like, I want to live out of a van and travel the world and, you know, be a digital nomad and sell NFTs, or probably not that anymore. Be a Bitcoin day trader. Like, are they like, what is their life goals? Are they compatible with yours? Really big. And there's, again, kind of more general, like, life compatibility questions, kind of more typical stuff that's maybe not kink related. But I don't know if there's anything else I've missed out that would be super important. I'm sure I've missed out on things that, you know, are important to others, but that's generally the kind of things that I prioritize. I'm not asking, I'm not answering questions exactly as they are asked. I am going in the order that they are asked in the queue. I appreciate the highlighting. If you would like to make sure I answer the question, you can put it in the white Q&A box up there, or you can use a super chat. If you don't put it in the chat, I am not promising I can get to it. If something is along the lines of the conversation we're currently having, I will try my best to get to it, but I don't always see everything because sometimes I'm just staring at the ceiling and, like, thinking of an answer. So I don't always see everything in the chat. Yeah. I was aware that Vlad the Impaler was the inspiration for Dracula. Yes, I have heard that before. Just as a quick answer there. Okay. But yeah, definitely put your question in the white question box. Again, up there, if you'll make sure I get to it, the white question box is the best way to get to it. Okay, those are the answers for what questions I would ask to interview a new dominant partner. Alright, next one. Can a sadist use pain or the threat of, pain, I imagine, to make somebody top or dominate them? Might it work more easily if the other person is a masochist? Yes. I don't know a lot of people with this dynamic, but I certainly have seen people in the past where they are like a sadistic bottom and their partner is a masochist top. And they have some kind of combination like that, where maybe the person who's like a sadist and a switch, who has like a partner who mostly tops but is also like some kind of weird combination where, like, okay, you have a sadist who that like somebody top or dominate them. I'm gonna say if it's like they're a sadist to make somebody, okay. Oh wait, I get, okay, sorry, I confused myself up for a second there. I was like making this more complicated than it actually was. So yes, there are definitely sadists who actually, as like a punishment for brats, will like make the brat do the thing to them that they actually would really like to receive. So like, oh, I know that you love getting punched, so instead of me punching you, you're going to punch me and miss out on the fun, but we're still doing a punching scene, so that kind of thing definitely happens, as sort of a like, I'm receiving the thing that you wish that you could receive instead. But yeah, the other person is a masochist. It would definitely be easier to threaten someone into topping or dominating them. I've known people that will do scenes as well where it's like, you're going to hit me or strike me with this implement or use a flogger on me for X amount of time or until I get out of this bondage. And then once I get my way out of this bondage or the 10 minutes is up, I'm going to come and I'm going to kick your butt. So you better make sure that you like wear me out and hit me good enough, because if you don't make it hard enough for me, then I'm going to make it even worse for you, or I'm going to torture you. I'm not going to do the thing that you like. Some flavor along those lines. But definitely there are people who are sadistic bottoms and people that are masochists that also top or who switch. Definitely exists. I've known people like that. Actually, I knew someone who did this with like bondage specifically, who they would essentially like threaten and critique their partners while they were being tied up. And it was sort of like, if you can't do this good enough, I'm going to break out and I'm going to fuck you up once I'm able to. So like, make sure it's really good. And I think that's like a fun dynamic to play with. I don't really play with that, so I can't speak to that experience on a personal level, what it's like, but it's out there. All different combinations of stuff exist in kink, truly. Like, if it is a thing that can happen, well, we're probably doing it in kink. So there you go. Chat's being funny. It is highlighted chat as a subscriber. I hope that means one can chat without a donation. Oh yeah, no, you can chat. You can just be in the regular chat. You shouldn't have to like subscribe or anything. You get, if you are, oh, actually, wait. I know what it's saying. It's not saying like, a membership. So chat as a subscriber means that you have to be subscribed to the channel to participate in the stream chat, because that reduces the amount of spam chatbots that happen. But it's not like a subscriber on YouTube is not like on Twitch. You're not paying to be a subscriber. You just are a part of the channel. You're just following me, and that's it. You don't have to have a donation. Although, if you want to make sure I answer your question, using a donation is the best way to do that. Otherwise, I can't promise that I will get to your question or see it, though I will try my best, simply because I don't have enough time to answer everybody. Low-key punishing a sub and making them punch you is so adorable. I think it's cute. I think it sounds like a fun scene. All right. My throat's getting a little sore, a little worn out. But if you've not asked your question yet, we got about 20 minutes left. So if you want to make sure I get to it, I would re-ask it now, or I would put it in the questions box, or I would use a super chat, as we've previously talked about. So those are your options. Also, if I don't feel like answering a question, I'm not necessarily going to answer it. So that's also part of it too. I'm not going to default answer absolutely everything, because sometimes I just don't want to, because it's my stream and you can't make me unless you pay me with the super chat. And then you can kind of make me a little bit more than you would otherwise. What would be some items you could make to spice up Christmas? I feel like we kind of talked about like Christmas DIY already. So like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer roleplay in general, using a tea towel as a bit gag for your pony play, doing some kind of like either wet and messy, actually, you know what, I'll go with that. Wet and messy scene with cookies and milk, I think could be cute. I don't know, I actually don't know if this question is really about like Christmas type scenes, versus how do you spice up Christmas. I would say if you just want to spice up Christmas, I mean, isn't the default kind of just like wearing a butt plug? That always makes Christmas spicier. Now I'm gonna say, assuming you are having a private adult-only Christmas with no non-consenting parties around. I'm not talking about going to your family Christmas with a vibrating butt plug in, unless you want to be a future Reddit story, because that will probably happen. But you can, you know, I like doing a little ribbon bondage, a little bondage in front of the fireplace while watching a Christmas movie. I think is super cute. Tea service with hot chocolate and cookies. Oh, I have this idea in my head and I'm like, is there a word for this? Is that a... doing like... I don't know. Like doing kind of like swaddling bondage. Like you're gonna be wrapped up as a Christmas present. Like saran wrapping somebody and then putting like present wrapping paper over it and then putting like a bow on their head, I think would be really funny. I mean, that would be super funny. Role-playing being a Christmas puppy that got given as a gift for Christmas, I think it'd be super cute. I think role-playing as an elf on the shelf could be really silly. Like having to be a doll that gets like stuck in one place is like a, you know, I'm an elf on the shelf and I got caught like baking Christmas cookies and I have to like maintain one perfect pose while the children are watching me. It's like really silly. I think that could be, I think that could be fun. So lots of ways to spice up the Christmas season. Those are some of the ideas that I would go with. Yeah, we got 15 minutes left. And a donation is also a great way to support the channel and my cute little wonderful doggo who is currently taking a big old naparina on the stream because she has been around a lot of spicy dogs lately, some very energetic dogs, lots of things going on. All right, there's another question I wanted to make sure to get to here. I'm trying to scroll up and find it. Wait, is that as far as I can scroll in this stream? What's going on? Doesn't make sense. Let me refresh that. There we go. Minimize that. Oh, huh. That's weird. It's not letting me scroll, like... Super, super weird. Okay. I don't even know when that time... I don't know when that... like stuff is wrong. I definitely missed a lot of stuff. I know there was like somebody who said that they like messed up a question, but I can't find it now, so it's gone. I'm sorry. Yes, Master Bob, I know you took part in that great slave hunt of 1980 that ended in failure. Yeah, exactly. If I had any knack for logistics, I'd do a black mass at Kinkfest. Is that just an excuse to get hot women to dress as nuns? Well, not just that. Okay, mostly that. I think that would be greatly appreciated. Actually, I know somebody who did, I don't remember what they called it, but it was like a very similar idea where they were doing like a black sacrament kind of thing where they had like a mother superior and like somebody role-playing a bishop, and then they had like you were getting like the sacrament, and I didn't participate in it, so I didn't see exactly what it was like, but the idea was like fucked up, weird, sexy, slutty nun costume, eating communion wafers, getting communion wine portal over your dress / body kind of energy was the vibe I got from it. So it does exist. That was at a version of that was at Dark Odyssey, and then another version of that was at Thornwood this past year. I don't know if they're going to Kinkfest, but there may be something like that that could be happening that you could witness / participate in potentially. Is it ethically possible to date a quote secondary partner without treating them as a disposable accessory to the quote primary relationship if a person's growth and emotional needs are capped by a pre-existing agreement they weren't a part of, or does that dynamic inherently violate the principle and respect for individual autonomy? Okay, so that really depends on how you are doing secondary primary relationships. If you are talking about it like a primary relationship means that it's these two people in a dyad and it's their relationship and they negotiate everything between the two of them, and there is a second party on the outside who is not an equal participant in those negotiations and has things dictated, passed down to them that they either get to say yes or no to, and they can leave the relationship, sure, but they're not as equal of a member in the negotiation itself. That, I think, is very ethically tricky to do well. However, if we're expanding beyond like vanilla relationships into kinky ones, there are definitely people who are kinky who want to have power and exchange relationships where they have a primary secondary dynamic, and they're okay with being literally treated as secondary to other partners because that's part of their kink. and they like being treated that way. And so, like, if we're looking at it from that perspective, like, it's ethical because they're being treated how they want to be treated, and they know that they have a lesser level of decision-making power, but that's how they want it to be, so it's fine. And they, you know, have the ability to leave if that no longer works for them, and they could maybe try to negotiate, but understanding that, you know, if they're wanting to change the basis of the relationship that they negotiated for so that they were okay with up front, that the other people maybe don't want to change it, or, you know, are maybe willing to meet in the middle, but not, you know, completely overhaul the whole thing. So that is one possibility. I think from a more just vanilla polyamorous framework, it is a bit trickier. And I think there are people who like being secondaries in a relationship in terms of time and priority, because that's what is going to work better for their life. Like, there are a lot of people who have a primary relationship themselves. Oh my god. Okay. I don't know if that solved it. Maybe it did. But there are some people who like being a secondary who have a primary relationship themselves and are secondary in another relationship because they're also prioritizing a different primary relationship. So that kind of dynamic can happen. You can also have dynamics where maybe the person is completely prioritizing their own career, their own life. You know, maybe they're like a flight attendant, or they travel for work a lot, or they own their own business. And so for them, their life's always going to be their life. They don't really want a nesting partner or a committed primary relationship, and actually kind of maybe like squicks them out, or they're not suited for it. And so, like, they're fine having a deprioritized relationship that maybe is like primarily sexual, or is, you know, something that has a lot of rules placed around it, or something like that, because they're like, well, I don't really, like, you know, have a whole lot that I want on my own. But how you make that work is highly dependent on the people in the primary relationship and them. Like, there's primary relationships that do really treat the secondary partners as disposable and are constantly like changing rules on them without due regard for their needs or wants. Use rules as a way to like manage jealousy, act really defensive, give ultimatums, have veto power, things that make it really hard to have a healthy primary secondary relationship style if you're labeling it that way. But you can do it in a more ethical way where, like, okay, you're agreeing to a certain baseline of a relationship, but that can't just like change willy-nilly because the primary people decide it's going to change willy-nilly. Like, there has to be equilateral communication. Like, maybe there needs to be three-way negotiation for any rule changes or for changes to the relationship dynamic. Like, one partner can't give ultimatums. There can't be veto power. Like, you can do secondary primary relationships without things like ultimatums or veto power, and I think that's a lot more ethical. But I think it's definitely possible. It just really depends. It just really, really depends on the people involved. I've certainly been in dynamics myself where, like, I actually ended up kind of being a secondary without realizing it. Like, the relationship wasn't labeled as a primary secondary relationship, and the fact it wasn't labeled that way, I think, actually caused a lot more distress and harm. And if it had been approached mindfully as a primary secondary dynamic, that would have been a lot better than, let's say, trying to pretend it was coming from an egalitarian or a relationship anarchist type of framework where, like, everyone gets to have equal say, and then continually being like, hey, so, like, it kind of seems like I'm not getting equal say, or I'm not getting prioritized in this way, or this thing isn't happening the way that I expected it to based on what I thought we negotiated for. And then my metamor is like making these new rules or changing things, or I'm not as involved in your life as I want to be because of them. Like, when things get uncomfortable, they can be really uncomfortable, but I think not labeling it a primary or secondary dynamic because you are afraid of that means you're unethical hurts more than trying to shove things that are hierarchical into a non-hierarchical box because it's implicitly treated as better. So yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. Certainly some people think that there's like no way to ever do a healthy egalitarian, or not maybe egalitarian, but a healthy consensual primary secondary relationship dynamic. But I just have known people that can do it. So like, how can, if I have real physical evidence of actual relationships that tell me that they work because I've seen people in them be happy, work long term, how can I say that they never work and can never be ethical? Because like, who am I to judge their relationships? You know, like it's their thing. All right, I'm gonna try to get to a couple more questions. Again, if you want to make sure I answer your question, you can use a super chat. You can use Streamlabs or YouTube, and I'll try my best to get to it as soon as I can. Otherwise, I am just going through whatever questions at this point suit my fancy. So I'll try to get to probably like one or two more, I think. As a switch, I identify as a service switch. I will top someone if they're looking for it. I don't go looking to top. I usually sub for the time being. Yeah, definitely a dynamic that a lot of people have. Earlier you spent some time discussing kink/BDSM resolutions. May you please provide a definition as to what that is for a layman like me? It's not really a kink thing. So, I mean, like, people make New Year's resolutions, which are things that people do starting usually on January 1st, where they commit in the new year to making a new habit, or breaking bad patterns, or changing their diet. Or common things are like diets, exercise routines, breaking bad habits, phone detoxes, reading more books in a year, reducing your stress levels, meditating every day, doing yoga every day, something like that. And that's like vanilla examples of how people do resolutions. But you can also do resolutions for yourself in the new year that are kinky, that are about your kink life. Whether that be like, I'm gonna go to my first munch sometime this year. I'm gonna really practice my rope bondage, or I'm gonna save up money to go to that convention I really want to go to, or I'm gonna practice a new service submission skill every month and like set aside time every weekend to like practice whatever that is. So that could be like polishing silver, or ironing clothes, or folding laundry, and like really getting into detail on that. So those are some examples of resolutions, but it depends on the individual and what they're looking for. I think I answered the question on how, like in a good way. What does it mean to do objectification? How does objectification work? I would say see my older video on degradation, objectification, and humiliation for a more thorough answer to that question. But essentially it means being treated like an object, which is what it sounds like. It means my partner interacting with me as though I am an object, which means I do not have the same level of consent or capacity for being violated as a human person would be, because it's a way of reducing my humanity and being treated as lower than in the relationship dynamic in sort of like a non-human-y kind of way. I don't know if that's like a good definition, but that's how I see it. Do you consider yourself to be a nihilist? Do you believe that life has no inherent meaning? I guess I don't know what the actual like textbook definition of nihilist is enough to say yes or no to that. I would say I'm probably most likely to believe that life has no inherent meaning to it, and the meaning of life is what we want it to be and what we make it to be and where we choose to spend our time and energy. And you know, that's what I think. But I don't know if there's any. I'm a pretty like open-ended person philosophically. Like, I don't believe there's any like hard and fast rules about like this is the meaning of the universe or this is what life is about, or I don't think that we can know that. I don't know if if that exists. I don't know if humanity has the sensory capabilities of discerning that truth, even if it did exist or that knowledge was out there for us to be able to obtain. The universe is a very vast and complicated and wacky and weird place, and I am sure that we are missing information on it because we just didn't evolve to be able to perceive that type of sensory input at any kind of particular level. So, like, who are human beings to decide what the true nature of existence is, you know? That's what I think about it. I don't know, that's kind of like a big question and a big answer, but that gives you some perspective on how I think about it. Not quite the end yet. Probably one or two more questions here. Krampus also being a rich vein of festive kink potential. Yes, flogging with branches and being carried away, especially. Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, getting beat with like birch branch or like pine needles or something, and then being put in a sack and carried around. That would be really funny. Are there any religions that involve BDSM or do BDSM in their rituals? I know, okay, not implicitly because of the religion itself. Like, there's no religion of BDSM. I know people that incorporate BDSM as part of their neo-pagan, ceremonial magic, Satanism kind of wheelhouse of religions, which is a vast wheelhouse, to be clear. I'm going to be able to incorporate BDSM into those things, but not because BDSM is part of the religion, but because they, as a practitioner, are using BDSM as part of their religious rituals. Does that make sense? Like, what the difference between those things are? In a crisis, health, financial, or emotional, does the shared, quote, nature of a polyamorous support system become a liability? When everyone is saturated with the needs of multiple partners, who bears the burden of being the rock? And is there a risk that polyamory creates a system where everyone is cared for broadly, but no one is cared for deeply? That's a very deep question. I mean, I would say, speaking as an American, and how I was raised in the American culture, right now, the American relationships are typically very atomized. And so the person that you rely on most is literally one other person and no one else. You have another support system. Maybe sometimes you could ask a really close friend for some help, but generally, especially if you're going through a crisis, maybe you ask parents, and you probably ask a romantic partner, like a long-term romantic partner, and that's it. So I would say it is much more likely to be the case that rather than multiple partnerships oversaturating people, multiple partnerships allow you to distribute the load more amongst more people, which is generally healthier for everyone. And gives everyone more room for capacity for everybody else. Now, if there is a person in that dynamic that is, and I don't know what kind word for this term, but is like an emotional sink. Like, they are somebody that has a very high level of need, emotionally, financially, mentally. They have a lot of mental health issues. They have a lot of physical health issues. That's something that is known within the polycule probably, and is accounted for in how people budget and approach their other relationships. But your mileage is going to vary on that. Like, who knows what happens if somebody's primary partner like suddenly gets pregnant or has cancer, or a child has cancer or gets really sick, or somebody loses a job. Like, you can't predict how that's going to go. But I don't know what this whole is. Polyamory creates a system where everyone is cared for broadly, but no one's cared for deeply, because we don't do that shit in monogamous relationships. Go to any Twitter account about relationships, go to any Reddit thread, go to any forum where people talk about relationships, and especially in hetero relationships, you will see time and time again how fucking lonely people are in their romantic relationships, because they might have emotionally bonded at first, and they might have sexually bonded at first, but they're not really caring deeply for each other. Surface level, like, we help each other with the bills at home kind of stuff, sure. But deep emotional care is not happening across America because of how American society and culture treats relationships, whether they be monogamous or polyamorous. So if we're saying, oh, well, in polyamory, instead of somebody really deeply caring for you as they would in monogamy, people only get cared for in like the broad strokes, but not deeply. People in monogamous relationships are not getting cared for either way, because neither party has capacity, because they're probably stressed and overwhelmed by their jobs, by life in general, and they're just holding on for dear life, and if anything, getting into a toxic codependent relationship with each other that's not healthy for either party involved. So I would say in my experience in polyamory, even when people have, multiple mental or physical health issues, go through financial struggles, lose work, have sick kids, whatever it is, even when things get really, really bad, there's a rallying that happens around that. It's a lot more of a communal caretaking process, and that usually leads to better things versus people like feeling like, I don't even know what getting cared for broadly would even really look like in that context. But it's certainly more care than the average person is experiencing in a monogamous heterosexual relationship. So that's my 2 cents on that. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be about it, because it's about 5 after 8 here, so it is time for me to get going. Thank you all so much for joining me on this Friday stream. We will not be streaming next Friday, which is the day after New Year's Day, so the 2nd. We will not be streaming, but there will be new videos out for you all. Now the holidays have passed. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being here. If you don't already would like to, please do subscribe, because I do these streams more or less every Friday, and we do a little Q&A, and it's fun, and you guys have a lot of very good questions. And if you had questions and I didn't get to them, you can ask me next time, and you can put them in the chat. You can use a super chat, and I will see you all again later. Save those questions for next